Hi, my name is Tim Ryan. Welcome to the Tim and Jenn Show. I am sitting here with my amazing wife, my better half, my business partner and co-host.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Jimenez Ryan. Welcome to the Tim and Jenn Show. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Middle of June.
Middle of June, life is good, sunny. People are getting out to live life again, get vaccinated.
I think this will be the last time I wear somewhat of a long shirt for like 4 months because it's hot. Okay, so we live in this like 1919 building and it gets really hot.
Really
it gets
cold.
really cold in the winter and then it gets really hot
in the summer, but it's cool in here in the days once the sun's going down. So who knows?
Yeah, we hope everyone is being really good to themselves today. I think that's so important. Giving yourself a break, learning to forgive yourself, learning to feel feelings and know they're not facts and they come and they go, and to process things. And I say that because right now I'm in the process of processing. That was so weird to say like that.
If for the people that are viewing, people that are listening, you can listen to our podcast on numerous platforms, but you can also view it if you go to your app store and download Lux TV, Luxe TV. It's a free app. You can get it on Google. You can get it on your iPhone, but you can watch us if you'd like to, because I got this.
You can do it on. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. And you can go on Amazon Alexa and different
all those
ways
things.
of viewing.
But look at my shirt. What does it say?
It says backwards, but it's Boston George.
It says Boston George.
Who gave you that?
Boston George, number 42. And on the back, what does it say?
Young 42 BG.
Yeah. So today's show, we are dedicating to a man that was like a father figure to my wife and myself, who became a dear friend
and family.
Boston George Jung, who unfortunately was called home on May 5th.
It's taken me this long to talk about it. I mean, I mentioned it here and there on our other podcasts, but for me, this was a loss, a big loss. And it's interesting because I lost two people that I love so very much, and they were father figure and mother figure in my life. My mom is still well and alive, and I'm grateful for that. But my stepmom also passed away. But this show, we were talking last night and we went, we should actually just do the show about
George.
And, I did a movie called Blow 20 years ago, and it changed my life. It changed my life instantly.
And the movie was based on, if you don't know who Boston George is, and most people know who he is, he was one of the most ingenious, prolific drug smugglers in the world.
And people might be like, how could you be talking about a drug smuggler?
Yeah, and we'll get into that, but George got hooked up with Pablo Escobar. Everybody knows who Pablo Escobar was. And when George met Pablo was moving 3 to 5 kilos of cocaine a month. When George was done with them, they were moving 10,000 tons. And yeah, we're both in recovery. Cocaine was both of our downfalls. And then heroin, obviously, for me. But you have to understand, George smuggled for fun, for the money and all that. But a book was made, a movie called Blow was made, and Jennifer was called to audition and got her breakout role in a movie called Blow. And if George didn't do what he did, you would have never been in that movie with Johnny Depp.
That was like Johnny's big thing after 21 Jump Street and all this stuff. Like, it transformed him to the next level.
Who else was in Blow?
Ray Liotta, Penelope Cruz, Paul Rubens, that's Pee Wee Herman, Rachel Griffin, Emma Roberts,
A bunch of people.
I mean, Jamie King.
I mean, and it's one of those iconic movies.
Azor.
It's one of those iconic movies that people love to watch. And you played the Colombian drug lord's wife in it, and you did all of it in Spanish.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting. So I had just started acting, and And I said, okay, so I was in a movie when I first got discovered, when I was 13 years old, called Let's Get Lost. It was a
What do you
documentary.
mean discovered? For people that are
Modeling.
just listening
Modeling.
and
I
don't
got
know.
discovered modeling at the Santa Monica Pier by Bruce Weber. And he ended up, after I worked with him on a bunch of other jobs, I did this movie called Let's Get Lost. And it was nominated for best documentary at the Oscars. It won all the film festivals.
What was it on?
Surreal. It was on a famous jazz musician named Chet Baker, who I had the honor of meeting. He ended up killing himself before the movie was done. This man I'll never forget, and I'm sorry that we're jumping back into the story, but this man I'll never forget. My mom and I were at the Shangri-La Hotel. That's where we were staying for like 4 months, 5 months. And because I was working with Bruce on different jobs, and we were shooting the movie, and Chet Baker and his girlfriend then were we're going to get into the elevator after shooting all night. I think it was like 4 a.m. We get in the elevator and it was just him and I at that moment. And I looked at him and it was like, we cut eyes and we just stared at each other. And it was like, I went into his soul. Like, it was the craziest experience because I didn't know about addiction recovery or anything like that, but I connected with him. Cut to later, I found out he was a drug addict, an alcoholic. That was my journey later on, through the years. And I now get why we connected. We were tied by that bond.
Yeah.
And cut to, I decided I wanted to stay in modeling, and I loved being in front of the camera, and that my voice mattered when I acted with Chet and on that movie set. And so I was studying, and I studied I was method, hardcore, intense, dedicated acting for years and years and years. And I get my first audition and I didn't get it. It was a movie called All the Pretty Horses. Penelope Cruz got it. And then I got my third audition was this movie called Flawless. And it was Robert De Niro. And I ended up reading with Robert De Niro. It was between me and this girl. It was like months worth of doing this. And they ended up going with the girl that was 20 years older. I was supposed to play a prostitute that taught him how to tango after he had a heart attack. And they end up going with the girl that's 20 years older than me. And I was like, I guess I'm in the right industry, right? So then I'm flying back from New York, and I have a manager. He's a ginormous manager at the time. And I have all these scripts, and I'm reading this one script, and it's called Blow. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to get in the room. Like, my soul was on fire when I read this script. And I had never felt that feeling before, ever in my life. Like, I knew I needed this. Like, it was like that yearning. And I've had those feelings in life since then, but I needed to get in the door. And I said, you got to get me in the room for this. And he's like, there's no way you can get this movie. They are going for these big actresses. There's this new girl, Ava Mendes, Rosario Dawson, blah, blah, blah. And they go on and on and on with the names of girls that are going to get, up for this movie. And I go, just let me get in the room. This is my movie. Because there's no way, but it's a good audition for you to go and try and, start getting your feet warm and
getting your
feet wet rather. And so I said, get me in. So I got in. And then I did it, and I read, the script was in English, and I said, no, this girl needs to be authentic. She needs to be in Spanish. So I went in only speaking Spanish, and then I get call back. It's like 5 months later. I go in, and I'm supposed to read with the director. And I go in there, and I only speak Spanish, and I beat the crap out of that director and that room, and that casting director till this day is one of the biggest casting directors. And I tore that place up. I didn't hear anything. And I was like, oh man, like I knew it was mine, right? And I was like, I guess, that's how it goes. Cut to like months later, I get a call, and it's Ted Demme, the director of Blow. And I get emotional with this. He says to me, hey, how are you? And it was right before Thanksgiving. He goes, or Christmas. And he's like, I just want to, say you did a really great job. And I just got to commend you. And you deserve this phone call, blah, blah, blah. My mom
Are
is
you
there
thinking you're going to get knocked?
No, I'm not getting it.
Okay.
But he at least acknowledged
you.
me. Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, that is so cool. And my mom is there. And I just went, oh my God. I'm like, thank you so much for this opportunity, for letting me audition and read with you. At the end of that audition, by the way, when I went in and I beat him up, he was like, thank you very much, like trying to speak to me in broken English, right? And I was like, no problem, right? And he looked at me like, what? Like, you can speak English? So when we were talking on the phone, it was normal conversation. And then he's like, I just want to wish Inez a Merry Christmas or a Happy Holiday Season. And I lost it.
So you got the role.
I got the role. And my life changed. It changed. And we worked on that movie for like, I think it was a total of a year, but we worked on that movie for like 6 months. We did 3 months of pre-production.
Okay, now hold on. Was George involved via prison in any
So
of
George,
this?
I had one phone call with Johnny Depp, Penelope Cruz, Paul Rudd, all these people in the room when George called, but we never personally said, hey, how are you? It's good to meet you. Oh, nice to meet you.
Because he's calling from a prison cell phone at the federal lockup.
But I heard his voice and I was like, wow, this is so cool. But we, as anything that Penelope and I would do, because we had to work together because we had to break our accents and all this stuff, we did, but everybody else, like Johnny and Paul Rubens and everyone was we were all like a family for that time. And so I do this movie and it literally changed my life. And all I heard was Johnny Depp as George Jung, mind you, right? And so cut to my life unfolded and it changed and it transformed and it was evolved and it, the ups and downs of my life. And the irony of that was that like I got like breakout role, like, the crazy coked out Colombian woman from the 70s, like the irony of that, like that was my drug of choice. But I had this secret that no one knew about. Which is called addiction. I was sober in the beginning of Blow, not in the end, but no one knew. No one knew. I kept it, in wraps. Cut to 20 years ago. I mean, cut to 3+ years ago. I get an email from my agent and my lawyer, and it was so Hollywood, but then I get this email and then I get a phone call saying you might want to address this email. And it was somebody reaching out to me that they wanted me to talk to George Jung because he needed some help.
He got out of prison, was in San Diego on parole, and you got the message, you reached out and you got in your car.
Well, I was in Florida. And I flew out because I needed to go meet George and he was in San Diego. And no one knew about this except my mom and my best friend. And so it was like, everyone kept calling, those two people kept calling me, going, I'm like, I'm not there yet. Okay, I'm there.
But hold on, let's take it back a step. So you're back in LA, you're getting in your car and you're driving to meet George Jung. What are the thoughts in your head from biggest drug smuggler, one of the last at the time living people from the Escobar days, and who are some of the other people, the drug dealers, Carlos Letter and all these people. What are you thinking driving there?
I'm like, well, what happens when I meet him? Is there someone going to kill me? Like, what's it like? Like,
were you fearful?
Yeah, very much.
So what was it like when you showed up there? And
you need to stop vaping.
Why? I want to vape.
I know.
It's my show. And no,
Okay.
I don't have a guest and I can fucking vape. Simple as that. What was it like knocking on that door?
Scary. Scary as all hell. Like, okay, I'm not gonna lie. Once I got to when I got there and I drove into the community that it was at, I remember calling my best friend Peter and going, okay, I'm here. If I don't call you back, like within an hour or two, like call the police. Like I was so scared. I had no idea. Like I'm about to meet this guy that like, and all the narcos came out and all that stuff. So I was like, oh no, this gets scary.
What was it like when he opened the door?
I remember that I was walking up and he was waiting for me at the door. And there's this dark screen and all I heard was, hello, princess. And that think of Johnny Depp in the movie, that was his voice, right? And I kept going, am I talking to Johnny? Is that Johnny back there? Like I was so confused at that moment with Johnny and George because they sounded exactly the same. And I was like, hi, like so uncomfortable.
And what did you say? Are we okay?
He opens the door and I go, before I took another step, I was like, are we okay? And I'm looking around like, seeing if there's like a gunman or something there. And he starts laughing, and this George laugh that is so like infectious. And he goes, don't worry, kid. If I would have,
If they wanted to kill me,
they would have killed me a long time ago. I never ratted. And I was like, oh, this is going to be deep.
And they don't kill outlaws.
Yeah, and they don't kill outlaws. So I go in there and we talked for like 16 hours. And he was like, ask me anything. And it was like I fell in love. And Ted Demme had died a couple years after the movie was out, a year after the movie was out. And he said, Teddy was going to do all this stuff when I got out, this and that. And you're like my answer, my prayers answered. Teddy brought you to me. And I lost it because I was so indebted to this man, Ted Demme, for giving me that break.
Now you're talking about a man that in today's money would be worth billions of dollars. And we'll get into some of the George stories, but he's on parole. He's living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And let me finish, please. But when he got out of prison, he had some money put away, gave it to his daughter. She basically pissed it away, abused George. George was alone.
Yeah.
He had his girlfriend, Rhonda, that he had met through prison, but she wasn't out in San Diego at the time.
No, she wasn't. And he wanted to get better. And, that day when we talked for 16 hours, I told him that I could help him and I could help him get better. And I was like, when I got that call from my agent, my lawyer, I remember I went, oh my God, that was the sign, because I was going to quit doing what I was doing.
Right.
And I was going to move back to California. And like, I wasn't going to do this recovery thing. I was going to do recovery, but I wasn't going to be in the industry or help
The
other
trenches.
people in the trenches. And I asked God to give me a sign, and I got my sign. It was George. And then months later, it was you. And I realized that it was like my duty to keep doing what I'm doing. But I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him, and he's like, ask me anything, ask me anything. The first thing that comes out of my mouth was, did you do cocaine? Like, were you hooked? Did you get hooked? And he tells me this story. He's like, I did. And he says to me, I remember I got this call from Pablo Escobar, and he told me to fly out to Colombia, Medellin. So I did. I got in my plane and I flew out there. And I get out of the plane. I was like, this is kind of weird, that he's having me come out here. And he walks into this one room of Pablo Escobar's estate. And he said it was like a long conference room with a really long table and all glass windows. And that Pablo was standing by the glass window with like a long gun, and he was like tapping the window.
Like it was an AK-47.
Yes. And he says, hello, George. And George says, hello, Pablo. And he said, sit down, George. And he said, right here. And he turns around and he taps, and he looks at the table, the long table. There's,
a kilo of cocaine.
And there's like $1 million there. And he said, they talk, and he says, George, do you see this? And he's like, yeah. And it's cocaine and money. And he said, do you see this? This is poison. And he's pointing to the cocaine. And then he looks at the money. He says, you see this? This isn't poison. And he says, I know you're doing the poison. Are you going to stop doing the poison? And he's like, I guess. And he's like, no. I don't work with people that do the poison. So you need to stop doing the poison. And George's like, okay. And he goes, and if you don't stop, by the time you get on your plane, I'll know, and you'll be dead, because I know if you're lying or not. And George looked at him, and he was like, okay, and they go on talking or whatever, and he leaves, and he gets in his plane, and he's like,
and he was afraid. Is he going to get shot?
Yeah.
Is his plane going to blow up? And he ended up flying away.
And he never did it again.
Never touched cocaine again.
Yeah.
Never.
Crazy. But, George always talks, and we have endless footage of George and all of us together.
So hold on. Then I come into you. Let's take a step back here.
So I get this place that's going to help me with George, and it's in Florida.
So let's be honest about it. George was drinking a lot and wanted help for his alcoholism.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So what happened?
George gets denied by
Parole.
and he can't leave the state. But
So you had some programs, you had a program I think in Florida that was gonna accept them and take care of them and
like a full thing of security.
and he was all ready to go.
And I was being very cautious because I didn't want to exploit George. I didn't want anyone to know anything that was happening. I needed to be top secret. I really did. I wanted, and I do that for anyone,
Any client.
anybody. I go to the extra measure to make sure that their anonymity is never broken. So cut to, you and I have been talking.
Parole wouldn't let him leave the state.
So him and I though got very close, and I was like, going and seeing him, talking to him all the time.
What was most times he called you in one day?
I think it was 38 times.
Yeah, 38 times.
That's a lot. I mean, we would just talk for hours and hours, and it got overwhelming. It got really overwhelming, and he knew me so well, and I knew him, and we got really, 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 really tight and really close. And cut to,
I come into your life.
Come into my life, and we're weeks into talking, and I tell you that I have somebody I need protection with and I need help with to get into a place. And within like an hour.
Well, stop, Jen. I can remember you saying, I've got to talk to you about this. It's confidential. I'm going to say a name, but do you know who George Jung is? And I'm like, yeah, Boston George, everybody knows.
I remember.
I was actually telling you that I was going to write George a letter in prison 5 years prior. Just as I was fascinated.
It was so crazy because I think that's what brought me to say that to you.
Yeah, I was fascinated by George. And then we ended up setting up a meeting to go meet him.
We found a place we were going to put in. You found a place rather within like 5 minutes. And I was like, of course he found a place for me in California where he could go into
where he could go. But we went down then again to San Diego, me and you, to meet George. And I've met a lot of famous people. I'm married to a supermodel and actress. I've never met anybody like Boston George Jung in my entire life. And I was trying to trip him up because, again, we sat there and talked for 2 days straight.
It was longer than 2 days. We were there for like 4.
But I'd ask him questions, and then the next day I'd ask him again. And word for word, that man was never off on any of his stories. You have those people that tell a story and you ask them, hey, tell me that story a week later, and it's totally different. Not with George. Everything absolutely stayed the same.
What was really interesting was
he was sharp. His memory.
Right when I walked in, he looked at me and he goes, where is he? Like talking about you. And he goes, and he whispers in my ear, I can read a person within 3 seconds. They can't fuck me over. So I was like, uh-oh, you know what I mean? Like it was scary. And he read you so quick. And like immediately there was this connection with you too.
We hit it off, and he called me his little outlaw. He said, you're an outlaw, you're a rebel.
And what's the difference between an outlaw and a gangster?
I don't remember what.
A night and day difference. What? I mean, an outlaw, you're either an outlaw, you're not. A gangster is not anything close to
no, I wasn't, but we had a lot of similarities, and we hit it off just like that.
In that night, you, Roger, and I, and George.
Roger, who was George's roommate, who they met in a halfway house or something. But Roger was coming out of the military. We love Roger. If you're listening, Roger, we fucking love you. So I said, let's go out to dinner. And I found the top 5-star restaurant in downtown San Diego. It's awesome steakhouse. And I mean, the waiters are wearing tuxedos, and they take us up to the second level, and we got this beautiful table. Then it happened. Word started.
Right before that, we went that day to the beach, and all these people were recognizing George.
Yeah,
it was crazy that, George has been gone for like 20 years or 20 plus. I mean, 15. I don't know, 18
22 years.
Yeah, and he's been away for 22 years, and all of a sudden, all these people know who he is. It blew my mind that he was that recognizable. And I've been around a lot of people that are very famous, and they know how to not be seen. And George, you couldn't deny who he was.
His hair, constantly had a cigarette in his hand, but he had an energy and a vibrance that I haven't experienced with many people in my life. He was the kindest soul I'd ever met. But we go to dinner at this restaurant, and we're sitting there ordering, and waiters started coming up. Word got out that George is in this restaurant. It's got 200-300 people in there. Really nice place. And this waiter comes up, and it turns out he had been in prison, and he's out, and he knew someone that George knew. And the guy's damn near on his knees bowing to him. Oh my God, it's Mr. George Jung. And Mr. Young, can I have a picture? Can I shake your hand? And more of this started happening.
All the waiters and the chef, and
all the way
people.
The maitre d's are coming out, the manager, and comping drinks for George, because George wrote the judge a letter to get off parole early, and she let him off. And we remember he calls us, he's like, yeah, me getting help, not gonna happen. I'm off parole, I'm drinking. Whatever, we love you, George. But then it happened. Jen gets up and asks to go to the bathroom. And I don't know if Roger was at the table or not, but it's just George and I. And George is sitting.
I think Roger and I came up together.
Yeah, George is sitting across from me, and he says, Timmy, take your glasses off. And I take them off, and he grabs my hand. And as Jen's coming back from the bathroom, she sees this and doesn't know, and snaps a picture with her phone. And I'll cherish this picture. But then George looks me right in the eyes, and he says, I know you love her, but I'm going to tell you one thing. She is like my daughter I never had. And if you do anything to hurt her, I promise you, I will have you killed within 24 hours. And the man was dead serious. And the funny thing is, damn near every time I talk to George, he's like, yo, Timmy, don't forget. But it was a laugh, but it was a powerful moment, because I'm sitting here with someone that was involved in this outlaw world. But in hindsight, the reason he quit doing what he did with Pablo was once Pablo started blowing up airplanes, blowing up embassies, killing judges, lawyers, and policemen, he said, hey, I didn't sign up for this. I just like to smuggle drugs and make money. It was fun. George never knew the damage cocaine would do to people and the amount of people that would die. And then he ended up getting out. But so we have dinner. Then you got to go down the stairs to go out, and we have to walk past a 100-foot bar that's probably got 150 patrons in this open room. It took us how long to get out of that restaurant?
5 hours.
5 hours. People were coming from 6 to 8 blocks away because they caught when George was there, taking pictures, talking, buying shots. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
What was surreal for me was that I saw people bowing down. Like I've never seen, I've never
seen it.
Anyone do that to someone. And I can't tell you like I've been to the Vatican, and it was, the people that were there, we were right underneath the Pope and all these, you would bow down to these, like certain people that I met there. And you would never, I'm like speechless. Like when I think about it, like I've never seen people bowing down to a man in my life. I've seen the Pope, people bowing down to the Pope.
Different, but George unconditionally loved you like a daughter, and he loved me like a son. He became family. I remember at one time we were gonna get a bigger place so George could move in with us. But when we talked with this man and in the stories, and I won't mention the crime family, but there's a number of New York crime families, and George was still personal friends with the head of it. One of the largest drug cartels in Mexico. They got into that because of the cocaine. But when you ask him who he was involved with and stuff, it's fascinating.
No, it really is. And I just remember he talked about death all the time. He always talked about death, and he would say, I'm an old man now, but or when I die. And to watch somebody go and be able to be present via phone or FaceTime or whatnot, and to be able to show up for him, and just love him unconditionally.
Why are you going to the passing of him already? There's a
No,
hell
no,
of a
no,
lot
no.
more to talk about.
Hold on. To watch someone go, to watch where they were.
Oh, yeah.
And watch the ability and capabilities of doing, making anything possible. And I don't mean about drugs. I mean about, when he's talked to us about, like, we asked him so many questions. I asked him everything inside and out, and so did you. And we'd say, why do you think this got so out of control? And for him to talk about families and how family members, moms and dads, are no longer involved in kids growing up today. And that when he was a kid, and he was playing on the block, with all the other kids, that if one kid did something bad and it wasn't their kid and the parents
neighbor
were out there,
whooped you.
the neighbor whooped you, and like that there was more more watching over kids and more discipline over kids. And I don't mean hitting, I mean like structure and parents on top of kids instead of caught up in their phones all day long or giving them iPads while they do whatever they do. These are the kind of conversations that we had.
One thing George wanted to do, he wanted to start speaking with Jennifer and I and educating people. He didn't know, you got to understand, George grew up outside Boston. He was a high school athlete. He went to college and played college football until he got injured. And him and his best friend Tuna said, well, let's buy a car and go to California. George had never, I don't think he'd even drank then. Had smoked weed. Nothing. He didn't know what weed was. He didn't know any drugs were in a bikini.
He'd never seen a woman in a bikini before.
And these two knuckleheads buy a Triumph and drive to California and had a couple $100 and secured a place. And next thing, there's pretty girls in bikinis and weed. And that's how it all started. And they started selling weed on the beach and realized they could sell it at Amherst College and University of Boston, and were weed smugglers and stumbled into the cocaine trade. But George was always adamant. I did it for the fun. I did it for the money. I did it for that rush, for that high. He said, in hindsight, if I would have known what I was getting into and the amount of millions of lives it would touch and destroy, I would have never done it, not in a million years. So we saw that other side of George Jung, and the man never snitched on anyone, and ultimately went back to prison again because somebody snitched on him. But George was never charged with cocaine. He was always charged with marijuana. Once in Chicago, and then got set up again. But man, you want to talk about a guy that had integrity, loyalty. I've never seen anything like it. And the one thing we actually had booked to do this October and November, theaters were opening in Michigan, and we were going to, myself, Jen, and George, we're going to show the movie Blow, and I was going to moderate and do a question and answer with George and Jen. And he was so excited that we're going to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have to understand that, like, before we started, when we were doing those pre-production stuff, we were like reading transcripts, court stuff. I mean, like, my character in real life slept with George, like, and that's why the two drug dealers go against each other in the movie. And so we had to establish that her name was not Inez, it was Yamel. Yamel doesn't exist anymore, but she got caught on, hooked up on drugs and it was a hot mess and died. Like, it went from being beautiful to like the downfall of addiction. To know the stories and Noriega and this and the CIA, blah, blah, blah. It's like, holy crap. Like, I wish I could tell you guys all the stories that we have.
We'll be out in the book.
Yeah.
They'll be out in the book. But I'm telling you, from my perspective, it was fascinating. It's like somebody sitting down that wants to be a financial person sitting down with, the financial genius of the world, or a Tony Robbins or whatever. George is probably the most fascinating person I've ever met, but on the flip side, he became a dear friend of mine.
He was like a mentor in some ways.
God.
Like he would call you, and I mean, it's so mind blowing. I gotta tell you, when he passed a few weeks ago, I had just lost my stepmom, and I couldn't process my stepmom, and then George passed, and
Let's see here.
it really haunted me. It haunted me because I could just hear him, I could hear him, and like what he represented to me, and how my life evolved and changed and grew
Because of that man.
because of that man. Whether the story is good or bad to someone, it's a story. And I'm a big advocate that we all have a story to tell.
Well, but you know what? We don't
And-
judge people, Jen.
and we don't.
I've got friends behind the wall right now that'll never get out.
We have friends right now probably out there in active addiction.
Yeah.
I'm not here. I've never been one to try to judge, and to know that I was able to love a man, and he loved me.
Okay.
God, did he love me? Hold on. And he loved me.
He loved you like a daughter.
Unconditionally.
Absolutely.
Was a huge gift. A huge gift. Go ahead.
I want to share. I don't think you've ever heard this one. This is a voicemail that George left me. I got a bunch of them. I'll never delete them.
Give old George a call and keep it on. And take care of that box, because never make a pretty woman your wife. You want to be happy for the rest of your life.
Take care of that fox. Never make a pretty woman your wife if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, But George would leave me these voice messages. It's the Irishman, and you can't explain it unless it's happened to you. But you get George on the phone, it'd be like, oh shit, George is calling. We know it's going to be an hour to 2 hour conversation. And I wish we could have one more of those. I wish we could have one more call. Because you don't realize, when someone can be taken away. We know George was having some health issues, but it was going okay. And we talked to him 3 days before he passed, and he was coherent and well. We talked to him a day before he passed. And then that morning, they called us when he passed. And it happens that quick. And the moral of the story is live life. Be true to your friends. The people that are in your life, that have been in your life, that you love, call up and let them know that. Don't close the door on anyone. Don't ever judge anyone. Because I wish we could have went and spoke with George and educate the colleges and the corporations, because he was probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. To do what he did, to be a smuggler, to run multiple planes and multiple people flying here, doing this, millions here.
Teaching himself how to drive a
He
plane.
taught himself how to fly.
I mean, this is a guy who went to college. Like, he was a star football player. And he still loved his father. He still loved his father. For those who have seen the movie, he talks a lot about his father in the movie. And he talked a lot about his father up until, a few months ago. He really loved his father.
But he really loved you. He absolutely adored you. And I'll tell you, I've never shared this with you, Jennifer, but that night at that dinner was a big catalyst to me, because I remember when we met and fell in love, and it was very quick. And, I'm pinching myself, I'm not only with this lady that's in long-term recovery. You've been on magazines your entire life. You've been in numerous movies and reality TV shows. But then for this man to say, look, don't ever hurt her, I'll kill ya. But it was like, you know what? You have someone that loves you so much. I love you. And he was like a mentor, a buffer, a family negotiator. He was just everything. It was your Georgie.
Yeah, he was my Georgie and our Georgie. I remember that he would question you the first time, that first weekend, and he was over and over and over, just grilling you. And it was like, Like, it was so cute.
People didn't hear that.
I approve.
He leaned over and said, I approve to Jennifer about me.
But it took till the end of the weekend to finally say it. But like, you could already tell that he already approved. Like, yeah.
I cherish those times, but you know,
I mean, then we were in Chicago together.
we did a huge event. It was a cannabis cup event of all things. Couple of my board members of our foundation that Jen and I ran were in the medical marijuana space. And they said, hey, we're doing this event. We'll raise money for your nonprofit and veterans for cannabis. And we did it. And George was the keynote speaker. And it was at a man's private house. And he had over $1 billion, not $1 million, $1 billion worth of classic cars in this private museum. And George got a little primed, and it's all these hedge fund guys, and George just
he was going to speak about one thing,
went
and
off,
then it went about
on a tangent, but it was a standing ovation, and people just loved him.
So this was his family, and I know that it evolved and changed through the last couple of years, but like his main people were you, obviously Rhonda, and Roger and you, myself. And we were the constant in his life since he got out of prison. And there's a few other people that really cared about him too.
His lawyer in San Diego. Yeah.
But to lose someone like him, and I think that people right now can relate. You know, you can relate by knowing that someone that you love, or loved because they passed, or love, well, you'll always love them. You know, a father figure, a father, mother,
friend,
grandmother,
whoever.
somebody who was influential in your life, life-changing, you know. It was different than having my mom or my dad, you know. It was somebody.
Well, you've matured. You're at a different place in your life from when your dad passed away 20 years ago.
You know, the day that
much different.
The day that Ted Demi called me, and I was with my mom, I started crying, and I hung up and I said, I gotta call Dad. And he was gone. So, whew.
So talk.
They all evolve into the same thing, like that.
Yeah.
Those people that are life changers.
And guess what, though? The reality is we're all going to fucking die. We're all going to die.
I think that's what's been hitting me.
Well, that's a reality. But if you're ripping and running and drinking and doing drugs, you're going to die a lot faster. If you're playing in that lifestyle, the gangster lifestyle, the wannabe outlaw, you're going to get picked off, or you're going to end up spending the rest of your life in a 9 by 8 foot prison cell.
And that's what George was all about. George loved now talking to military. He loved working with kids. He loved talking to veterans so much. My God, his heart, and I have so many recordings of it. His heart was into working with veterans and working with people that fought for our country, got wounded, and no one gave a shit about. He loved working with kids. He
studied. He could tell you anything about World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the Korean War. He was a war historian, but he reached out to these people and did events for them and spoke at their fundraisers or whatever.
And he loved kids. He really did.
Yeah.
And, you know, he said if he could have done it differently, he would have. But with that being said, I think, you know, these kids right now that feel lost and they feel that they have no structure in their lives. They're like, gangsters are the way to go. And George is like, man, George used to be like, I wish I could talk to these wannabe gangsters, because they ain't gangsters. They ain't outlaws. There is no other outlaws. Like, I'm the last living outlaw, but like it ends up in prison, you know, or dead. I just wish that he had the opportunity to keep talking to kids and people that like went the wrong direction, because we've all gone in the wrong direction. Let's make that very clear. We've all done things that we're not so proud of or felt that we needed to act out in, because
I wouldn't say we all have. We all haven't.
We have all made mistakes in life. We have all made mistakes. Even
everyone's
the best
made
mom in
mistakes,
the world
but not drinking and doing drugs.
No, I'm not talking about
Everyone has
drugs.
it.
I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about we've all made mistakes in life.
Sure.
You know, we've all done the wrong thing at one moment or another.
And one of those decisions
can end it all for you.
Absolutely.
And, that's, he loved, he's like, I wish I could go and talk to prison, people in
Yeah.
prison. Like, he wished he could pass on what he had, the knowledge he had. And he didn't have that opportunity.
I remember we took him down to Chicago, a radio show called The Bill and Wendy Show. Bill Leff and Wendy Snyder, two Chicago DJs for 30 years. They were in awe when we walked into the studio.
The whole
with
studio.
Boston George Jung.
The whole studio was in awe.
And
Yeah.
I had been on that show 30 times. They love me. I love them. But to walk in not only with Jennifer Jimenez and Boston George Jung, you don't get that too often. And that was just an amazing, amazing experience. Just one of many amazing experiences.
And Rhonda was there, and
what was her dog? What's her dog's name?
I can't believe I just went blank on that.
Yeah, and their little dog.
And their little dog, and Morley. And Morley videoed us that whole 4 days or 5 days. And then we have other video. We have 3 weeks worth of video of George, nonstop. And I can't wait till that transforms into something one day. But I think what you're saying, the point of this whole podcast today is I want to celebrate all those who make a difference in my life or in someone else's life. Thank you.
Yeah, and cherish those people. And it teaches me, I've never gotten in an argument with George. I mean, we would have heated debates, but never an argument, never mad at the man. But I see people hold grudges for years. And then when the person, God forbid, is called home, passes away, I should have changed things now. Change your actions now. You only get one shot. And this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is called life. Don't look at me like that. Did I steal that from you?
Yes.
So what? You should have used it.
Jeez, Louise.
I think that actually comes from the 12-step books.
No, it doesn't. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Is not from the 12-step.
It's
from my agent, my book agent.
Okay, well, it's from your book agent, not you. So you stole it from your book agent.
I always say he told me once.
Okay,
this is not life. This is not a dress rehearsal.
Look, debater.
You get one shot.
You get one shot at life. Cherish the fucking people you have in it. Change the things to better yourself if you're not doing well. Ask for help if you need it. And don't ever judge a book by its cover, because a lot of people judge it, man. And if you could spend the time that we did with him, your whole perspective would shift. I could see in a different life if he would have been one of the hosts of 60 Minutes or something like that.
I think he'd be bigger.
But anyhow, we just wanted to share a little bit about our dear friend Boston George Jung and how much of an influence, inspiration, and what a true friend and father figure and brother he was. And he is fucking dearly missed. But I celebrate, and we celebrate the time we had with George.
I've never seen you, because I haven't been there, obviously, when you lost your son, which I'm so sorry. And I always say that.
I know.
But I've never seen you be so affected by someone's death. That day was so surreal. I know that people out there can understand. We just got to make this better.
Got to make it a better place. But we wanted to just share on George. But hey, guess what? Jennifer and I still speak nationwide, internationally, to corporations, to colleges, to high schools, to middle schools, to community events, to law enforcement conferences. If you're interested in having us come out, two very unique individuals, two totally different stories, but guess what? 15 and a half years sober, 8+ years sober. And it's not just a recovery talk. It's life, it's lessons. Check us out, www.dope.com, dope2hope.com.
And also, I can't wait. Our studio is going to be available soon, ready. I can't wait.
Where's the studio?
It's going to be on Rodeo Drive. It is on Rodeo Drive. They're just waiting for the last of the permits, and I can't wait to announce this very soon, the actual date. But it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be interactive, and people can come and watch the show as we're filming it while we're in our thing.
Yeah,
and
it's all
gonna
glass
be
windows.
awesome,
It's
you
badass.
guys.
So Candace, Chelsea, we
Thank
love
you.
you. Lux,
Victor, thank
Victor,
you.
Lux
Thank you.
Media. Thank you.
And again, I'm going to say what I say all the time is thank you to you guys who are listening. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for always reaching out. Thank you for wanting to make yourself better by listening.
And thank you for the emails. If you want to email us, Jenn, JENN @dopetohope.com or Tim @dopetohope.com. We read them ourselves. We respond ourselves.
Tim reads them all.
So if you got questions, insight, comments, please shoot us an email. You can find Jenn on all social media platforms at
Jennifer Jimenez,
Jen-
GIMENEZ.
or you can find me at Twitter at A Man of Recovery, or on Instagram or Facebook at Tim Ryan, Dope to Hope.
We love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. By the way, next week and moving forward, we have some badass guests. I'm so excited about this. Thank you for tuning in, you guys. Have a great rest of your week.
Have a great week. We love you. We love you, Boston George. This is Tim Ryan and Jennifer
love you,
Jimenez
Georgie.
Ryan signing off for the Tim and Jenn Show. We'll talk to you next week. Have an amazing day. We want to talk to you about Clean Cause, better caffeine. What's in the can? Our organic, sparkling Herba Mate is a premium pick-me-up that won't let you down. Every can of Clean Cause contains 160 milligrams of better caffeine, and each sip supports recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. 50% of the profits go to assist people into sober living. Check out cleancause.com.
Hope. At Rosecrans, it's more than a wish. Hope has power. As the proven behavioral health leader in the Midwest, no other program offers our depth of experience and hope here at Rosecrans. And when someone you love struggles with substance abuse and mental illness, hope plays an important part in recovery. Life's got bigger plans for you. We should know. We're the most trusted name in treatment and the best choice for those who dare to hope. Visit us at rosecrans.org. Life's waiting.
Seaside Palm Beach is an executive luxury addiction treatment center located in Palm Beach, Florida. Our private clients come from all over the world, including business executives, professional athletes, celebrities, and more. Seaside Palm Beach offers first-class amenities and high-end accommodations, including a gourmet culinary experience, ocean views, pet-friendly facilities, and access to cell phones and laptops during your stay. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, please call us at 877-959-5053. Again, that number is 877-959-5053.
Now, glutathione is a big word, but it's the body's own master antioxidant. So it's a scavenger for free radicals, for bacteria, and what's relevant now, viruses. This is new to the marketplace. There's no other product on the market that has the ingredient NACET.
And basically NACET increases the production of that glutathione that is in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system and keep it strong. Elevated sense of well-being, supports muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, powerful liver support, energy, helps blood sugar regulation, superior bioavailability of key ingredients.
One of your best defenses against COVID is a strong immune system. Taking GSH Plus as a daily supplement does all that. And now we have the product out on the marketplace.